Boker Tov Chavrim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You are watching Israeli News Live. It is really getting very nerve-wracking, no doubt, here as we are watching things unfold here in the Middle East. This statement coming out from Andrei Kortunov, head of the Russian International Affairs Council, a state-backed think tank, said an escalation tensions between Russia and the West on broad front over the past month had sharply increased the risk of a clash that in the worst case scenario raises the specter of a wider conflict. He says here, and they quote him, "I don't want to sound apocalyptic. We are not there yet, but we are moving in that direction." That's a very serious situation. Such doomsday predictions, as they write in here, are not coming out of the blue. Russian Foreign Ministry set the tone on Sunday with a sharply worded statement that claimed that the information about the suspected attack on Sunday in Duma was a lie created as a pretext for U.S. military action against against the government of Syria. And more that evidence that's coming out of Syria is that the staged attack must have occurred some other place rather than Duma. And I can't say for sure. Of course, it's conflicting from both sides. The U.S. doesn't know. The State Department finally comes out and even admits they don't even know what type of chemical it was. They were quick to point out it was chlorine, but now they're not sure what it is. Well, here's where we can see that this whole idea of it moving in an apocalyptic direction, we're going to get to that in just a second, is for sure being taken consideration by the U.S. This also, by the way, on the back screen, you guys probably don't see it too well. It is disguised over Syria last night. Totally clear, no flying over Lebanon, Syria, or even southern Turkey there in the southwest corner there off that little panhandle. They are very much concerned of any time an attack could start there. Amichai Stein is saying here, breaking officials to AP, U.S., France, and Britain were in extensive consultations about launching a military strike as early as the end of this week. So the whole idea that the attack would start within 24 hours is totally been taken off the page there. And that comes, as we see here, Trump considers a military action on Syria. Pentagon worries it could put Russian soldiers in the crosshairs. So I guess the U.S. is a little bit concerned about whether or not the apocalyptic event could truly unfold. It's very troubling. The U.S. president meeting with advisors, even the Britain and France saying they have not fully committed as of yet to military action. So all this talk of war is backing down just a bit, but I think also it may be buying for time. So very troubling indeed. And so we want to take and look more about what is actually going on. We also have this on RT. This just came out a little while ago here. Any U.S. missiles fired at Syria will be shot down, launch sites targeted. This was by the Russian envoy to Lebanon. Now, the Russian envoy to Lebanon is not can't necessarily speak directly for President Putin, but it also puts Russia kind of in a spotlight to carry out these types of words. Now, President Putin did say if Damascus was targeted, that he would target those launch pads where these missiles are coming from. But the U.S. is looking at a much broader attack, not just launching Tomahawk cruise missiles inside of Syria, but rather also using manned warplanes. And Russia, I've noticed also Russia has kind of backed down a little bit as well by stating if their troops are put in harm's way, they will respond immediately. All right, that's a little different than going to retaliate if any strike comes whatsoever. So the U.S. may be looking at trying to target areas that they feel like will say we have sent a response, but yet at the same time try to avoid hitting Russia that would cause the conflict to rapidly increase there. You also have this article here from the Observer, British intelligence. Yes, Russian spy was poisoned by the Kremlin. You're talking about the media is going haywire to gain support of their own people before this war gets started, because they realize, after all, if they drag Russia into a war, it will be apocalyptic without a doubt. Because Russia has said many times before, if they cannot win a ground war, they will use nuclear weapons. And of course, Britain would come right into the crosshairs, as well as France. And, it's kind of eerie to think of this. Someone had sent me a little while back here, maybe a week or so ago, they sent me a link to a man from South Africa. He looked like a Jewish guy that was from the late 1800s that spoke about a war that would happen near the ends of days. And he said right before he died, he said this war will take place when they're talking about the climate changing. But he actually made the statement that there would come a nuclear war, I don't think he used the word nuclear, but a war of a huge catastrophic consequences. And he said Britain would be nearly wiped off the map, and France also would suffer major attack, as well as the United States. He also speaks about Russia would be the one that would do that, and that Russia would also suffer a grave losses as a result of this war. So it's very troubling, and this may be exactly what the New World Order wants to do, because the insider that I know had shared with me, and I've shared that with you guys many, many times, that they want to take and break nationalism, so when the New World Order is put in place, a New World government can run the entire world. And this is what the Vatican has been calling for, a one world order and a one world government with a one world religion. Very, very eerie the way these things are headed right now, especially as we look what's happening. Also on this issue as well, Peter Beaumont, he writes for The Guardian, writes for other posts there, says Israel has misjudged Russia and Syria. The consequences could be grave. Now, everybody would love to jump on the bandwagon and say, here's your Gog of Magog. We told you it was Russia. Don't take your eyes off Turkey. Turkey is where that's really at. But it does you good to know. Look at who writes the article. Do a little research on Peter Beaumont. You'll find out Peter Beaumont is Catholic. And of course, the agenda, just like we see in the papers right now in America, I think it's the Washington Post, the New York Times, and if I'm not mistaken, it was the Guardian, are all supportive of the U.S., French, and British war against Syria right now. And again, look at who owns those papers. This whole war in Syria really is also to drag Iran into the war. This is why Saudi Arabia has also agreed to get involved in this war as well. So it's a very troubling situation that we're seeing. And when it comes to Israel, I do not believe that Russia will attack Israel. You have to remember, Russia has 2 million citizens of their own living in Israel. But what they will do is I don't think he's going to protect Israel. I think that, and that's where the problem will come in, because if this turns into a major escalation of violence, Turkey is there. Turkey is going to side with the U.S. when it comes to bombing Syria. Turkey's going to go for the advance of gain. And if Turkey thinks the window is open, may not be during this conflict, but they will come back later and go after Israel, because they keep saying they need to take Jerusalem. And they have a lot of backing from Iran and others. Only those 7 Gulf states that claim to be with Israel are a little different situation there. You have to go back and watch that message I did about the Exodus story, how we're seeing a cyclical event with the story of Exodus. Very interesting. All right, guys, let's see. I think I had one more issue I wanted to just bring out here as well. Yes, heavy artillery fire, yes, in Donetsk this morning after a long period of relative successful ceasefire. I think that the whole issue with Ukraine and Russia is, if they can get a war going in Syria, one thing the U.S. will try to do is to push Ukraine to do a heavy attack against Donetsk and Luhansk regions in eastern Ukraine, maybe even drag Crimea into the mix, and it could even spread even to the borders there of Eastern Europe with Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Right now, Russian troops are training in Belarus with their Belarus counterparts there. Russia has sent over in Novgorod a huge convoy of military equipment there going towards Estonia. So I think Russia is also realizing that they may end up in a multiple front war. And that is the one way that the U.S., Britain may figure they can get a better hand on Syria is if they cause Russia to have to deal with multiple fronts, weakening their ability inside of Syria. But the danger of all of this, as I've said many times before, is escalating to a nuclear war. And there's no winners at all in a nuclear war. Very troubling indeed. Anyway, blessings to all of you. I do see comments popping up here, but my mind can't watch both. So anyway, we do love all you guys. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for coming on. Seems like live broadcasting is something that really does bring a lot of people on board and gets a lot of people interested in the news that is happening. So we're going to try to do more of the live ones. We do when we're recording, and it's not live here. We are the broadcasts that we run where we actually pre-record. We run those live on live stream. So do keep that in mind. There as well. Blessings to you all. God bless you, and thank you for watching. Shalom.